Many a times we hear or even come across someone with a condition we have never heard of or encountered. Such is now becoming a norm with the increase in awareness about rare diseases in Kenya. Now more than ever, we are seeing different diseases coming up, better known as rare diseases. The world marked the Rare Diseases Day last month on the 28th of February to mobilize communities to join in providing better care for people living with rare diseases. Faith Njahira knows all too well what it means to live with a rare disease. She is living with a condition known as muscular dystrophy, which started at a tender age of 10.
At 10 years, that's when I started noticing something is different. Before then, I went to a regular primary school and regular high school. So when I was in primary school, that was around class 5. We used to have PE every Tuesday and Thursday, and the first thing the first thing the whole school did is run around the field. So I noticed that every time I happened to be the last. Then I remember there's one time I actually told myself, okay, today we're not going to be last, so we're going to run. So I think the adrenaline was so high, so I ran like the first 6 meters or so. I was actually together with a group, but my body said there's enough of this, and I slowed down. I almost tripped, and now I went back to my slow pace. So that's when I started realizing something is different.
Going about easy tasks like going up the stairs or standing became a challenge.
The simple thing of getting up from the desk in class. The others, you can stand up hands-free, so to call it. But I have to hold on to the desk so that I can stand up. There's a time I had a fall, the same year, in class 5. Then I had to take the bus to school. I noticed that when going up the step, I could not do it as easily as the other kids were doing it. I had to hold on and pull myself a bit harder to get up the step. And after some time, if the step is too high, then a teacher would have to help me up.
At the back of her mind, it disturbed her that she couldn't do all these things, but she brushed it off, thinking it was probably her height and that with time it would go away.
I always thought to myself, like going up the bus, I always thought to myself, you're too short. That's why you can't go up the step. So I was thinking, by the time I'm getting to Form 4, I'd be taller, and I'll just go up the step as easily as everyone else. But that's when I noticed it's not getting better. If anything, now I'll have to need help and not just go up maybe a bus as easily.
Frequent falls due to lack of balance and having difficulty standing from her desk seemed normal until later when she went to high school in a place with a different ground.
Having an elder sibling with the same issue, for me it looked normal for a very long time because I'm not the only one having those issues. But now after Form 4, that's when I was like, I went to a high school which is in a hilly area. So when you're moving from one place to another, there are stairs all over the place. So I used to really struggle with the stairs. So after that, I was like, no, we have to get an answer to this. What is this? Have to get to the bottom of this.
She had to see more than one doctor before getting an actual diagnosis of what her problem was. None of the tests carried out revealed what she had. It was only until later when she saw an occupational therapist who finally told her what she had was a muscle disease.
I had to undergo an MRI. I think maybe they wanted to find out because the bending, I cannot also bend. Bending, I'll bend, but I'll get tired very fast, and standing up from a bending position is a small issue. So that time, I think he wanted to find out whether there's a problem with my back, my lower back. So the MRI did not give anything conclusive, so he didn't give us a diagnosis, but we saw an occupational therapist in Gatondo district. And now after a while working with him, that's when he told us this is muscular dystrophy, because he's worked with other people with the same condition, so he was able to pinpoint, signal the characteristics of the condition.
Muscular dystrophy normally affects the muscles that control movement.
So muscular dystrophy is a disease of the muscles, which is genetic. So that means there's some genes in the body which change, and it affects the muscles. So we'd say the muscle disease, which is genetic and manifests in various ways at various ages, starting sometimes from the newborn to much later. So the main thing is that muscles are the ones which are involved, and genetic material therefore has some changes in the muscle the composition of the muscle, therefore resulting in weakness.
Muscular dystrophy is caused by defects in certain genes, with the type of muscular dystrophy determined by the abnormal gene. Most of the muscular dystrophies are a form of inherited disease called X-linked disorders or genetic diseases that mothers can transmit to their sons, even though the mothers themselves are unaffected by the disease. A few muscular dystrophies aren't inherited at all and occur because of a new gene abnormality or mutation.
Some of them are what called X-linked. X-linked means that you only get it in the males, because the genetics that males are XY, females are XX. So if you have two X's, then one X protects. If it is in the X, one abnormal, the abnormality is in one X. Therefore, X and the Y, X does not, it's no other X to protect the Y. So you have those ones where it will be occur in the males. So the males would have that condition. So that's sex-linked. So that you know, okay, there may be even some of them, people realize all the children, all the male children have the condition, but their sisters don't have it because of that linkage. But that is the Duchenne type, which is, we call it sex-linked. There are some which are not sex-linked. Those ones can occur in both sexes.
Given that muscular dystrophy is such a rare condition, diagnosing this disease is also not as easy. Its symptoms hardly come with pain, making one think it's almost normal.
Since there's several groups of muscle diseases, one of the things that they present is weakness. And the weakness is progressive weakness. Progressive, that means it started from this time and it's getting worse. And it can start from childhood, or some start at adulthood, depending on the type. So they say weakness, and weakness is mainly what we call proximal muscle. Proximal muscle are muscles which are closer to the body, closer to the hip region and closer to the arm. So you may have somebody, when he walks, he has to waddle. He cannot rise from a sitting position. Or if he goes to a pit latrine, he cannot rise from a pit latrine. So then those muscles are weak. The other muscles are quite strong. Or if it affects the upper part, then you find that things like combing the hair becomes a difficulty. Walking on things which are raised, let's say walking on things on top, become a difficulty because the muscles are the ones affected, the proximal, they call it proximal. That's the ones the closest to the body are the ones affected. Some of them, the distal part are quite okay. So you have the grip is all right, but to lift up something or to do something above or rise from a squatting position is difficult. But once you rise, therefore you can walk. But then due to the weakness, there's an abnormal gait because the muscles the body requires some muscle to sustain the leg. So once you find somebody's leg has to move down, and therefore there's a swinging movement. So that would be a typical weakness. But also other muscles may be weak. There's some where the face is also weak, some who cannot whistle. So it depends really on what type of muscular dystrophy you're talking about. So there are various kinds. But generally, it's muscle weakness of progressive nature without other symptoms. Because if there's a numbness, that's a different thing. So that it is then basically the muscle alone which are affected. Some may present with a heart condition, because I said that the heart and the muscles have got something in common. But those are rarer varieties. Most often they may spare. There are some which are also related things with mental retardation. So the mental capacity may be affected. So that's another different. But the common ones is basically weakness.
Most genetic conditions don't go away, and one therefore has to learn to adjust on how to live with such conditions, something that Faith did not know about.
We'd never heard of it. Actually, I think it was as new to everyone as it was to us. Because when that time, you see, if you go to the hospital and the doctor tells you have malaria, you don't get shocked. Everybody has malaria at some point in their life. But now muscular dystrophy, all the while, the family was saying the difference is maybe my cousins who were the same age, they could do things differently and more things than I could. There was also resistance. Now when the news it's muscular dystrophy, then also the fact that there's no cure.
According to statistics, the odds of passing muscular dystrophy on to your children range from approximately 25% to 50%.
A lot of them is really, once you have defined it, is genetic counseling, so that you use it for the purposes of knowing, okay, so-and-so has it, and therefore that has got chances of transmitting it to somebody, and therefore the person would therefore be counseled on what are the probability of getting a child with the same condition, and therefore the person will make an informed decision on whether to have children and how many children to have.
After rigorous sessions of therapy, she can now manage her daily life and chores comfortably, but not without adjustment.
For a place where another person will walk using 10 minutes, I'll use 30 minutes. So I'll have to adjust my life. It is maybe I'm going for an appointment somewhere and I'm late. I cannot say I'll walk there and take the 10 minutes. I'll have to take a taxi and go there and reach there in time. If it is maybe going around town, I have to really think ahead. If there are no buses, if there are no matatu stations, what am I going to use? Or the alternative routes, if the only routes with buses, then I have to maybe get a taxi to go there, or get somebody, inconvenience another person to go with me there. If it is, we also go to places where there are stairs, like you've gone to an institution and there are no ramps anywhere. So you take more time, there's the danger of someone pushing you, like working in Nairobi. Also with muscular dystrophy, there is loss of balance with time. So if somebody pushes me even how slightly, then I'll find myself on the ground. Then I also cannot get myself up if there's nothing to support me with. So I have to be also careful where I'm walking and, watch out for anybody who's going to push me or something like that.
Having lived with the condition since birth motivated her to start the Muscular Dystrophy Society of Kenya, and in with the aim of helping many others with this condition live a better life.
Late last year, around September last year, I just happened to be watching the news on a Sunday afternoon, and one of the media houses shared the story of a family with a young man and a young lady, and they described the conditions where when they were young, they were quite okay, they were doing, they were running all over the place, they were doing everything a child could do. Then they went on to say where over time they could not do their chores, and one of them is already confined to a wheelchair. And for me, immediately, I knew this is muscular dystrophy. But the headline down there was the mysterious condition. So for me, I was very disturbed to see that it is not mysterious, because I know a few people with the condition. So for me, that was, I think, the wake-up start. I decided, no, the world should know, especially in Kenya, there is such low awareness about it. People should know, and so that they can stop discriminating and sidelining people with the condition.
She believes that much more needs to be done on the ground to stop the stigma that comes with disability, something no one ever asks for.
Society, what I really want is for people to embrace difference. Not exactly, even if it's people with muscular dystrophy, yes, embrace them. People who have been confined on wheelchairs, allow them, make the buildings more accessible, put up a ramp instead of stairs and it's all the way to the 4th floor. If it's maybe restaurants, the people who have physical disabling conditions who cannot go to entertainment spots, because very few of them have a ramp to the entrance. So you think, I want to go and enjoy myself, but I'll have to get a few people to lift me up. So you'll already not be enjoying yourself at the time you get there.
Having muscular dystrophy does not render one unable to lead a normal life.